"Doctor, please, save him." Those words sliced through the silence like a blade through silk, jolting me from the paperwork scattered across my desk. It was 2 in the morning, and my small clinic should have been closed, locked tight against the dangers that lurked in the city's shadows. But suddenly, 5 men in black suits burst through my door, guns glinting at their waists, their faces carved from stone and desperation. And between them they carried a man whose white shirt had transformed into a canvas of crimson. Blood poured from his chest in rhythmic pulses, each beat of his failing heart painting the floor beneath him. His eyes were closed, his face the color of ash, and I knew instantly, without intervention in the next 10 minutes, this man would die on my examination table. "Who is this?" My voice trembled despite my best efforts to sound calm and professional. I was just an Omega doctor running a modest practice in a quiet neighborhood. Trauma cases like this belonged in hospital emergency rooms, not here in my cramped clinic with its outdated equipment and limited supplies. "This is Creed Harlow, sir," one of the bodyguards said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. My heart stopped. Creed Harlow. The name alone made hardened criminals sleep with one eye open. The city's most powerful mafia boss, the man who controlled the underworld with an iron fist and ruthless efficiency. And now he lay dying on my table, his life draining away with each passing second. My hands began to shake, but I forced myself to focus. I grabbed my white coat, snapped on surgical gloves, and approached him. The gunshot wound was positioned dangerously close to his heart. A miracle and a curse. A few centimeters to the left, and he would already be dead. But this position meant the surgery would be incredibly complex, threading the needle between salvation and disaster. Then his scent hit me like a physical force. Alpha pheromones flooded the room, so powerful and overwhelming that my Omega instinct screamed at me to run. The scent was intoxicating, wood smoke and bourbon, leather and something wild that I couldn't name. My body wanted to submit, to flee, to do anything except stand here and play God with this dangerous man's life. But my conscience, my oath as a doctor, anchored me in place. "Get me instruments, now." I barked at my assistant, who stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes wide with terror. She had heard the stories too. Everyone had. The surgery began in a blur of blood and adrenaline. My hands moved with practiced precision, even as my mind raced with the implications of what I was doing. Monitors beeped frantically as his heart rate fluctuated, climbing and dropping in dangerous patterns. One wrong move, one severed artery, one moment of hesitation, and the most dangerous man in the city would die under my care, and his men would make sure I followed him into the grave. I worked for 4 hours straight, my back screaming in protest, my eyes burning from concentration. Every stitch had to be perfect, every clamp positioned exactly right. The bullet had fragmented on impact, sending shrapnel through tissue that should never be disturbed. I extracted each piece with painstaking care, praying that my trembling fingers wouldn't slip. Sweat dripped down my forehead, blurring my vision. My assistant dabbed at it with a cloth, her own hands shaking so badly she could barely hold it steady. The bodyguards stood like statues around the room, their presence oppressive, their guns a constant reminder of what failure meant. But slowly, gradually, his vital signs began to stabilize. The bleeding slowed, then stopped. His heart rate evened out into a steady rhythm. I placed the final stitch and stepped back, my legs nearly giving out beneath me. He was alive, against all odds, against the severity of his injuries. Creed Harlow was going to survive. I stripped off my bloody gloves and turned to dispose of them, my entire body trembling with exhaustion and relief. But then a voice, rough as gravel but carrying an unexpected warmth, cut through the antiseptic air. "You saved me." I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. His eyes were open, deep brown eyes that seemed to see straight through my skin and into my soul. They were predator's eyes, sharp and calculating even in his weakened state. But there was something else there too, something that made my breath catch. Gratitude, vulnerability, recognition. "Don't try to move," I managed to say, my professional demeanor cracking under the intensity of his gaze. "The surgery was successful, but you need complete rest. Any strain could tear the stitches." He didn't respond, just continued to watch me with those unnerving eyes. And in that moment, as our gazes locked in the fluorescent light of my small clinic, I felt something shift in the universe. Some invisible thread had been woven between us, connecting Omega to Alpha in a way I had never experienced before. I didn't know it then, standing there in my blood-stained coat with exhaustion making my limbs feel like lead, but I had just changed the entire trajectory of my life. Saving Creed Harlow wasn't just a medical procedure, it was a choice that would pull me into a world of darkness and danger, of passion and protection, of love and violence intertwined so tightly they became inseparable. His lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. And despite everything, despite the guns, despite the blood, despite knowing exactly who and what he was, I felt an answering warmth bloom in my chest. "What's your name, doctor?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Soren," I replied before I could stop myself, abandoning the formal title that should have maintained the distance between us. "Soren Cross." "Soren," he repeated, and the way he said my name made it sound like a promise and a threat all at once. "I owe you a debt, and I always repay my debts." Those words should have terrified me. In the Mafia world, debts were chains that bound people together, often until death. But instead, I felt something else entirely. A dangerous curiosity about what it would mean to be owed by a man like Creed Harlow. As his eyes finally closed again, exhaustion pulling him back towards sleep, I stood there wondering what I had just set in motion. The bodyguards relaxed slightly, their rigid postures softening now that their boss was stable. But I could see it in their eyes too. They were looking at me differently now. Not as some random doctor, but as someone important. Someone their boss had marked as significant. I had saved his life, and in doing so I had sealed my own fate. Morning sunlight streamed through the clinic windows, harsh and unforgiving. When I finally forced my eyes open, every muscle in my body ached from the night's ordeal. I had collapsed onto the worn sofa in my office, unable to make it home, needing to stay close in case complications arose. But I had woken every hour throughout the night, checking Creed's pulse, monitoring his breathing, adjusting his IV drip. Now as pale dawn light filled the room, I found him awake and watching me with that same intense stare that had unnerved me before. There was something predatory about the way he observed my every movement, like a wolf tracking prey through the forest. "Who are you?" His question was direct, commanding, laced with the natural dominance that all alphas carried, but that seemed amplified in him tenfold. My Omega biology responded immediately. My pulse quickened, my skin flushed, and I had to consciously suppress the urge to lower my gaze submissively. "I'm Dr. Soren Cross," I answered, forcing professionalism into my tone despite the flutter of awareness in my chest. "You nearly died last night. The bullet missed your heart by less than an inch. You need to remain still for at least another week, maybe longer. The stitches are holding, but any sudden movement could cause internal bleeding." Creed tried to sit up, his powerful frame shifting uncomfortably against the pillows. I rushed forward without thinking, pressing my hand against his shoulder. "Stop, you'll tear everything open again." The moment my palm made contact with his bare skin, electricity shot through me. His eyes locked onto mine, and for several heartbeats, the world seemed to hold its breath. His alpha pheromones intensified, wrapping around me like invisible chains, speaking to some primal part of my Omega nature that I usually kept locked away. These weren't just dominance pheromones. They carried undertones of possession, of claiming of mine. "You saved my life," Creed said, and his voice had softened into something almost vulnerable. "Do you understand the significance of that?" I pulled my hand back quickly, trying to reestablish professional boundaries that seemed to be dissolving with every passing second. "It means I did my job. Now you recover and leave." His laughter was low and dangerous, sending shivers down my spine. "Leave? Doctor, you've saved the life of the city's most wanted man. In my world, that creates a bond. A debt. And I always honor my obligations." "What are you talking about?" My stomach twisted with growing unease. "It means you're under my protection now," Creed stated with absolute authority, the kind of tone alphas used when declaring ownership over an Omega. "I need to keep you safe. My enemies number in the hundreds. Soren, the moment they discover you healed me, you become a target, and I won't allow that to happen. I don't need your protection." Even as the words left my mouth, I knew they sounded hollow, because the truth was settling over me like a heavy blanket. I had heard the stories about Creed Harlow, about the bodies that disappeared, the territories that changed hands, the violence that followed in his wake. If his enemies truly came for me, over the next few days, Creed remained in my clinic, recovering under my reluctant care. His bodyguards stationed themselves outside, their black SUVs, looking absurdly out of place in front of my modest practice. I changed his dressings, administered medications, checked his vitals, and each time I came near him, his scent affected me more profoundly. My Omega instincts recognized something in him that both terrified and fascinated me. This alpha was dangerous, violent, capable of terrible things, but underneath that darkness, I sensed something else. A protective nature, a loyalty so fierce it bordered on obsessive. One evening, while changing his bandages, Creed suddenly caught my wrist. His grip was firm but surprisingly gentle, his calloused fingers warm against my skin. I froze, my breath catching. "Soren," he said, and hearing my name from his lips sent an unexpected thrill through me. "I don't want to let you go." The weight of those words hung between us. This wasn't just about protection or debt anymore. Something deeper was forming, something that had nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with the inexplicable pull between Alpha and Omega. "You don't even know me," I whispered, unable to look away from his intense gaze. "I know you risked everything to save a stranger," Creed replied. "I know you have hands that can heal instead of hurt. I know you smell like rain and vanilla, and it's driving me insane. I know that when you're near me, my Alpha feels settled for the first time in years. That's enough." My heart hammered against my ribs. This was happening too fast, spiraling out of my control. I was an independent Omega who had spent years building a life free from Alpha dominance. But here was Creed Harlow, the most dangerous man in the city, looking at me like I was something precious he intended to keep. "This is crazy," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "Maybe," Creed agreed, his thumb stroking gently across my pulse point. "But it's also inevitable. From the moment you touched me, from the moment you chose to save me instead of turning me away, this became inevitable. You felt it too. Don't deny it." I wanted to argue, to push him away, to reassert my independence. But he was right. From that first moment when our eyes met, something had clicked into place. A recognition that went beyond rational thought, beyond conscious choice. My Omega had recognized her Alpha, and no amount of denial would change that fundamental truth. "I'm scared," I admitted quietly. Creed's expression softened in a way I suspected few people ever witnessed. "Good. You should be. My world is brutal and unforgiving. But I promise you this, Soren, I will protect you with everything I have. Nothing and no one will hurt you while I'm alive." As his brown eyes held mine, I felt the last of my resistance crumbling. I didn't understand how or why. But in just a few days, this dangerous Alpha had become essential to me. The thought of him leaving, of never seeing him again, created an actual physical ache in my chest. "When you're healed," I finally said, "we need to talk about what this means. Really talk." Creed's smile was genuine this time, transforming his harsh features into something almost beautiful. "We will. I promise." But even as I nodded, returning to my work with trembling hands, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were both standing at the edge of a precipice. One more step, and we would fall into something neither of us could control. A week passed before Creed finally left my clinic. He promised to stay away, to let me return to my normal life. I tried to believe him, tried to convince myself that everything would return to how it was before. But deep down, I knew better. The universe doesn't let you save a mafia boss's life and then simply move on. 7 days after his departure, a sleek black car pulled up outside my clinic during the late afternoon lull. The door opened, and out stepped a man who could have been Creed's twin. Same sharp jawline, same commanding presence, same air of barely leashed violence. But this man's features were harder, his smile colder, his eyes carrying a cruelty that Creed's lacked. "Dr. Cross," he said, his voice smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. "I'm Rain Harlow, Creed's younger brother." Ice flooded my veins. I had heard whispers about Rain, that he was even more ruthless than his older brother, that where Creed had honor, Rain had only ambition. "How can I help you?" "Help me?" Rain's laugh was sharp and mocking. "You saved my brother's life. Do you really think I'm here asking for assistance?" No, doctor. I'm here to give you a warning. Every instinct I possessed screamed danger. A warning about what? About my brother's newfound obsession with you. Rain circled me slowly, like a shark scenting blood in the water. Creed has become attached. And when alphas like us become attached to omegas, we don't let go. Ever. But here's what you need to understand. By becoming important to him, you've painted a target on your back. Creed has enemies everywhere. Rival families, betrayed associates. People who would love nothing more than to hurt him by hurting what he valued. I didn't ask for any of this, I said, hating how my voice wavered. Doesn't matter. Rain pulled out his phone, swiping through images before shoving the screen in my face. Photos of my clinic from every angle. My apartment building. My usual route to the grocery store. My favorite coffee shop. Every detail of my life cataloged and documented. You think you're safe? Creed has assigned protection. Sure. But if he ever lets his guard down, if he ever chooses his business over you, you're dead within days. My legs felt weak. This wasn't just theoretical danger anymore. It was concrete, documented, real. Why are you telling me this? Rain's expression hardened. Because I don't want my brother weakened by sentiment. In our world, caring about someone is the same as handing your enemies a loaded gun. Creed is getting soft. And that will get him killed. If you genuinely care about him, you'll walk away. Disappear. Give him back his edge. And if I don't, then we'll all pay the price when his enemies strike. And trust me, doctor, they will strike. It's not a question of if, but when. Rain stepped closer, invading my space deliberately. I've already heard rumblings. The Kozlov family knows about you. The Santiago cartel has sent scouts. You have maybe a month before someone makes their move. He left as abruptly as he'd arrived, leaving me standing there with my world tilting on its axis. Everything he'd said was true. I could see it in the cold calculation of his eyes, feel it in the weight of the evidence he'd presented. By saving Creed, I had stepped into a war zone without armor or weapons. That night, alone in my apartment, I tried to process everything. Could I really walk away from Creed? The bond between us was still new, still undefined, but already it felt essential. The thought of never seeing him again created a hollow ache in my chest that no logic could dismiss. A knock on my door made me jump, my heart racing. For a terrifying moment, I thought Rain had returned. Or worse, that his predictions had come true and one of Creed's enemies had found me. But when I opened the door, Creed himself stood there, fully healed and dressed in an immaculate black suit. You saw Rain, he said. It wasn't a question. How did you? I have people watching you. For your protection. His jaw was tight, tension radiating from every line of his body. What did he say? The dam broke. Why didn't you tell me how much danger I'm in? Why did you let me believe this could be normal? I'm just a doctor, Creed. I don't know anything about your world. About violence and vendettas, and I know. He stepped inside and his alpha presence filled my small apartment. I didn't tell you because I was trying to handle it quietly. But Rain is right about one thing. My enemies will come for you. They're probably already planning it. Then what am I supposed to do? Frustration and fear made my voice rise. Walk away? Pretend we never met? No. The word was absolute, unshakable. You're going to move in with me. Into my home. Under my full protection. It's the only way to guarantee your safety. Move in with you? We barely know each other. Creed closed the distance between us, his alpha dominance washing over me like a tidal wave. Your Omega knows me, Soren. She's known me since the moment you touched me. This isn't about time or logic. This is about survival. My enemies are already tracking you. They're mapping your routines, identifying vulnerabilities. If you stay here alone and exposed, you'll be dead within 2 weeks. The casual certainty with which he said it made my blood run cold. You really believe that? I know it. His hands cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. I didn't want this for you. I wanted to keep you separate from the darkness of my life. But the moment you saved me, that became impossible. Now the only question is whether you trust me enough to let me protect you. I saw the truth in his eyes, the fear he tried to hide, the determination, the possessiveness that was pure alpha instinct. He wasn't asking permission. He was stating a fact. Either I accepted his protection or I accepted death. This isn't fair, I whispered. No, Creed agreed. It's not. But it's reality. My reality. And now, Unfortunately, yours too. Standing there in my apartment, feeling the weight of his presence and the truth of his words, I realized my simple life was over. The Omega doctor who had lived quietly, who had built careful walls around his independence, no longer existed. In his place stood someone who had captured the attention of the city's most dangerous man and all the enemies that came with him. "How long?" I asked quietly. "How long will I need to hide in your protection?" Creed's expression was grim. "Until I eliminate the threats, or until—" He didn't finish, but I understood. "Until one of us was dead." I looked around my apartment at the life I had built brick by brick, the freedom I had fought so hard to maintain. And then I looked back at Creed, at the dangerous alpha who had somehow become necessary to my survival. "When do we leave?" His relief was palpable. "Tonight. Pack what you need. Everything else can be replaced." As I moved through my apartment gathering essentials with shaking hands, I wondered if I was walking towards safety or towards something far more dangerous than Creed's enemies. Because the real threat wasn't bullets or rival families. It was the way my heart had already started to belong to a man whose world was built on violence and blood. Creed's penthouse was the complete opposite of my modest clinic's sleek glass and steel stretching across the top floor of the city's most exclusive building. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed the entire metropolis like a kingdom laid out for its ruler. The space was massive, almost intimidating in its luxury, with bodyguards stationed at every corner like silent sentinels. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress disguised as one. "Your room is upstairs," Creed said, leading me down a hallway lined with marble so polished I could see my reflection. His tone was businesslike, controlled, but I could feel his attention tracking my every reaction like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. The bedroom he showed me was larger than my entire apartment had been. A king-sized bed dominated the space, and another wall of windows offered a breathtaking view of the city lights, spreading endlessly below. I set my bag down carefully, feeling completely out of place in such opulence. When I came back downstairs, Creed was sitting in the living room with a glass of amber liquid, whiskey probably expensive enough to pay my rent for 3 months. His eyes fixed on me the moment I appeared, that predatory focus that made my skin prickle with awareness. "How long will this arrangement last?" I asked, deliberately crossing my arms to project a confidence I didn't entirely feel. "Until the danger passes." "And when will that be?" Creed set his glass down with careful precision, his gaze never leaving mine. "Perhaps never, Soren. Because you're mine now, whether you accept it or not." Anger flared hot in my chest. "I'm not your possession, Creed. I came here because you said it was safe, not because I belong to you. I don't belong to anyone except myself." He stood, moving toward me with that predatory grace that was pure alpha. When he stopped, he was close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell that intoxicating scent of wood smoke and danger that made my Omega biology sing with want. "You're mine not because I've claimed you, but because your Omega has already recognized me. Don't you feel it? When I'm near, your body responds. Your scent shifts, becomes sweeter, warmer. You want to run from me, but something deeper keeps pulling you back. That's biology, Soren. And you can't fight it." I couldn't respond because he was right. Every rational part of me wanted to maintain distance, to preserve my independence. But something primal in my Omega nature had imprinted on this dangerous alpha from the moment our eyes first met. The following weeks settled into an unexpected rhythm. I woke early to make breakfast in his enormous kitchen. His chef only prepared elaborate continental dishes, and I craved the simple comfort foods I'd grown up with. Creed would leave for his mysterious meetings surrounded by armed guards, and each time I watched him go, my heart would clench with fear that he might not return. But he always did. Every evening we'd sit together at his dining table, talking about everything except the violence that defined his world. He never spoke directly about his criminal enterprises, but I could see the weight of it in his eyes, the darkness that haunted him, the guilt that ate away at whatever remained of his conscience. For the first time, I began to understand that Creed wasn't born a monster. Circumstances had carved him into one piece by bloody piece. One night, getting water from the kitchen, I spotted him standing alone on the balcony. The city lights painted shadows across his face, and for once, his carefully maintained mask had slipped. He looked vulnerable in a way I'd never witnessed before, not like a feared Mafia boss, but like a man carrying burdens too heavy to bear alone. "Are you all right?" I asked softly. Stepping outside, the cool night breeze carried the scent of rain. He turned to me and something in his expression shifted. Then he smiled. A genuine smile that transformed his harsh features into something almost beautiful. "You know, Soren, I've never let anyone get this close before. My whole life has been about maintaining distance, keeping people at arm's length where they can't hurt me or be used against me. But with you, everything is different. You don't see me as the monster everyone else does. You see me as human, and that terrifies me more than any bullet ever could." My heart stuttered in my chest. This confession, raw and unguarded, felt more intimate than any physical touch. "I'm scared too," I admitted, "of what this means, of where it's on. Then we'll be scared together." His hand found mine in the darkness, fingers interlacing with a gentleness that contradicted everything I knew about him. We stood there in silence, two people from impossibly different worlds, bound together by forces neither of us fully understood. And for the first time since arriving at his penthouse prison, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. The nights became easier after that. Creed would come home exhausted, the weight of his empire heavy on his shoulders, and I'd be there, a constant presence he could lean on. We'd talk about books, about music, about childhood memories that felt like they belonged to different people entirely. He told me about growing up in violence, about losing his parents to a rival family, about the moment he decided to stop being a victim and become the thing everyone feared. And I told him about my life, growing up as an omega who refused to be defined by biology, fighting for my education when everyone said omegas should focus on finding an alpha to provide for them, building my clinic from nothing because I wanted to heal people rather than hurt them. "You're the opposite of everything I am," Creed said one night, his fingers trailing through my hair as we sat together on his couch. "You create life. I take it. You heal. I destroy. How can someone like me deserve someone like you?" "Maybe it's not about deserving," I replied quietly. "Maybe it's about choosing. Every day despite everything. Choosing each other." His arms tightened around me and I felt him press a kiss to the top of my head. "Then I choose you, Soren. Every damn day, I choose you." But even as warmth flooded through me at his words, I couldn't shake the feeling that our peace was temporary. Danger lurked at the edges of our carefully constructed sanctuary, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when it did, I knew our fragile happiness would shatter like glass. Still, for now, wrapped in Creed's arms with the city sleeping below us, I let myself believe in the possibility of forever, even if forever only lasted until morning. 2 months had passed since I moved into Creed's penthouse, and somewhere along the way the fortress had become home. Not the reluctant refuge I'd first entered, but a genuine sanctuary where I felt safe for the first time in my life. The realization terrified me. I had sworn I'd never depend on an alpha, never let my independence be compromised. Yet here I was, unable to imagine life without Creed's presence anchoring me. That particular evening, I was in my room reading when his scent changed dramatically. The subtle undertones of wood and smoke suddenly intensified, becoming thick and heady and unmistakable. Alpha. My omega biology recognized it instantly, sending a cascade of reactions through my body: heightened sensitivity, accelerated heartbeat, an overwhelming urge to respond to his need. I locked my door immediately, pressing my back against it as if that thin barrier could protect me from the inevitable. But Creed's pheromones were so powerful they seemed to seep through the walls themselves, filling my room with his presence even though he wasn't physically there. Then came the knock, urgent, desperate. Nothing like his usual controlled demeanor. "Soren." His voice was rough, breaking on my name. "Open the door, please." "I can't." My voice came out higher than intended, panic and desire warring inside me. "You're in rut, Creed. If I open this door, everything will change. Everything." "I know." There was raw pain in those 2 words. "But I need you. Not just any omega you. Only you can help me through this. I don't want anyone else. I've never wanted anyone the way I want you." My hands trembled against the door. Opening it meant crossing a line we could never uncross. Our relationship would transform from whatever tentative thing it had been into something permanent, binding. But leaving him to suffer alone, knowing his rut would drive him to pain or worse, was equally impossible. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I unlocked the door and pulled it open. Creed stood there looking barely in control. His eyes were wild, pupils blown wide, and sweat dampened his hair. His pheromones hit me like a physical wave, so intense my knees nearly buckled. Every instinct in my omega nature screamed at me to submit, to give him whatever he needed. But instead of pouncing like an alpha lost to instinct might have, he reached out slowly and took my hand, pressing it against his chest where I could feel his heart racing erratically. "I won't force you into anything," he said, each word seeming to cost him enormous effort. "I won't hurt you or take advantage. I just need you near me. Your presence calms something in me that nothing else can touch. Please, Soren." The desperation in his voice, the way he was fighting his most basic instincts to give me a choice, shattered my last resistance. I pulled him into my room and guided him to sit on the bed. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." The night stretched endlessly. His rut was intense, painful to witness, but he never once crossed the boundaries I'd set. Instead, he held my hand like it was a lifeline, buried his face against my neck to breathe in my scent, and trembled with the effort of maintaining control. I stayed beside him, cooling his fevered skin with damp cloths, bringing him water, murmuring reassurances whenever the pain seemed worst. And somewhere in those long hours, sitting in the darkness listening to his labored breathing, I finally acknowledged the truth I'd been running from. I loved him. Deeply, completely, dangerously. This violent man who could kill without hesitation had somehow become the center of my world. When dawn finally broke and his rut began to subside, I found myself curled against him, his arms wrapped protectively around me even in exhausted sleep. His face was peaceful in a way I'd never seen before, all the hard edges softened by genuine rest. I traced the line of his jaw gently, and his eyes opened, those intense brown eyes that now held a softness reserved only for me. "Morning," he murmured, his voice hoarse but warm. "Good morning," I replied, feeling something profound settle between us. We had crossed through fire together and emerged on the other side changed, but then his phone shattered the moment with its harsh ringing. Creed's entire demeanor shifted as he answered, the tender man disappearing behind the cold mask of the Mafia boss. I watched the transformation with a sinking feeling in my stomach. "What's wrong?" I asked as he ended the call, sitting up despite my exhaustion. He turned to face me, and I saw something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Genuine fear. "It's Rain. He's making his move against me. He's turned half my organization against me. Built his own army from my own men, and his primary target." He paused, his jaw clenching. "His primary target is you, Soren. He's going to use you as leverage against me." Cold dread washed over me. I'd only met Rain once, but that brief encounter had shown me exactly how dangerous he was, perhaps even more so than Creed, because Rain had no moral boundaries whatsoever. "What does that mean?" "It means this is about to become a war, and wars in my world don't end until someone dies." His hands cupped my face, trembling slightly. "I need you to promise me something. If things go badly, if I don't come back, you'll let Marcus take you somewhere safe. You'll disappear and never look back." "No." The word came out fierce, absolute. "I'm not making that promise. If you think I'm going to just run away while you fight for your life." "Soren." "No. You don't get to shut me out now. We're in this together, remember? You said you chose me. Well, I choose you too. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Creed's expression was a mixture of pride, love, and terror. "You're going to be the death of me, Omega. And somehow I wouldn't have it any other way." He kissed me then, deep and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of me. And as I kissed him back with equal intensity, I tried not to think about the very real possibility that this might be the last time. Because Rain was coming, and when he arrived, only one brother would survive. Rain's attack came with brutal efficiency that spoke of careful planning. He struck Creed's main warehouse first, the one that held weapons and supplies, setting it ablaze in the middle of the night. Then he systematically targeted each of Creed's legitimate businesses, destroying them one by one like a chess player removing pieces from the board. This wasn't just about power. It was personal. A younger brother determined to prove he deserved the throne more than his elder. Creed locked me in the penthouse with his most trusted bodyguards, Marcus and 4 others who had been with him since the beginning. I watched from the windows as he prepared for battle, checking weapons with practiced efficiency, his face a mask of cold determination. This was the man the city feared, the monster everyone whispered about. But I knew the truth underneath that armor was someone capable of love, of sacrifice, of choosing gentleness when violence would be easier. "Promise me you'll come back," I said, grabbing his hand before he could leave. My voice broke despite my best efforts to stay strong. He looked at me and for a moment the mask cracked, revealing the fear underneath. "Soren, if I don't return, and that's a real possibility, Marcus will take you to a safe house. You'll have enough money to start over somewhere new. Somewhere Rain can never find you. Do you understand?" "Stop." Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and unstoppable. "Stop talking like you're already dead. You're coming back to me, Creed. You have to." His hands framed my face with infinite tenderness, and he leaned down to press his forehead against mine. "I love you," he whispered. "I've never said those words to anyone before, never felt them. But with you it's like learning to breathe after drowning. You make me want to be better than what I am. You make me wish I deserved you." Those words, the first time he'd spoken them aloud, felt like both a gift and a goodbye. I kissed him desperately, trying to pour everything I felt into that contact. "Come back to me," I would. "That's all I ask. Just come back." He left and I was alone with the bodyguards and my spiraling thoughts. Hours crawled by, each minute an eternity. Marcus kept checking his phone, his expression growing grimmer with each update. The other guards maintained their positions, weapons ready, but I could see the tension in their shoulders. Then gunfire erupted in the distance, sharp cracks that echoed between buildings. The guards went on high alert and Marcus pushed me away from the windows. "Stay back, Doctor. Whatever happens, stay inside." But how could I stay inside when Creed was out there fighting for his life? I moved back to the window despite Marcus's protests and looked down at the street below. Chaos had erupted, cars burning, people running, and in the center of it all, two figures faced each other like ancient warriors preparing for a duel. Creed and Rain, brothers separated by ambition and betrayal, each pointing a gun at the other's heart. Even from this distance I could hear Rain's voice carrying up through the night air. "All of this for an Omega? You'd kill your own brother over someone you barely know? He's not someone." Creed's shout was raw with emotion. "He's everything. And if you think for 1 second I'll let you hurt him, you're more deluded than I thought. Then you've already lost." Rain's voice dropped to something dark and final. "Because love is weakness, brother, and weakness gets you killed." 2 gunshots cracked through the air in rapid succession. Then silence, heavy, absolute, terrifying. I stood frozen, unable to breathe, unable to think. One of them was dead. But which one? The door burst open and I spun around, my heart in my throat. Creed stood there, blood covering his clothes, his face pale with exhaustion and something that looked like soul-deep pain. But he was standing. He was alive. "Rain?" I whispered, though I already knew the answer. "He's gone." Creed's voice was hollow. "He gave me no choice. It was you or him, Soren. And I chose you. I'll always choose you." I crossed the room in 3 steps and threw myself into his arms. Not caring about the blood, not caring about anything except the fact that he had survived. "I thought I'd lost you." I sobbed into his chest. "I thought you were dead." "I know." His arms tightened around me almost painfully. "I know. But I couldn't leave you. Even knowing what I'd have to do, knowing I'd have to kill my own brother, I couldn't let him take you from me." We stood there holding each other as the reality of what had happened sank in. Creed had killed Rain, his last remaining family, to protect me. That knowledge should have terrified me, should have made me question what kind of man I'd fallen in love with. But instead I only held him tighter, silently promising that his sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. 1 year later, the clinic bustled with activity, patients in the waiting room, my assistant organizing files, the familiar rhythm of healing that had once defined my entire existence. But now, everything had changed in the best possible way. Creed had gradually legitimized his business empire, transforming illegal enterprises into security companies and real estate investments. The transition hadn't been easy or complete. Some darkness would always cling to his past. But he was trying me, for us, for the future we were building together. At night, we'd return to the penthouse that had become our home in truth rather than necessity. He'd pull me into his arms, and in those quiet moments, the dangerous Mafia boss would disappear, leaving only the man who had chosen love over everything else. You saved my life that night in your clinic, he said one evening, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my skin. But what you really saved was my soul. You gave me a reason to be more than the monster everyone expected. Thank you for seeing the man underneath. I smiled, listening to his heartbeat steady, strong, alive. You were never a monster, Creed, just someone who needed to be reminded that he deserved love. And I'll spend the rest of my life reminding you. Our journey had been written in blood and sacrifice, in fear and desperate hope. But we had survived. We had chosen each other, again and again, until that choice became the foundation of something unbreakable. And that was the greatest victory of all.